Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Rslash Tales from Retail. In today's episode, say no to drugs. They age you. A tale about a customer getting angry about finding what they wanted. The lady who didn't know how her new car worked. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. Say no to drugs. They age you. I've been a shift manager for a retail drugstore chain for over a decade and have my fair share of crazy stories. Many years ago, I was asked if I could work the overnight shift for a week. No problem. However, this area was not a good area. There were constantly panhandlers outside, and overnight was notorious for having homeless people making crazy claims and trying to live in the store. It was only for a week, so I could handle it. At the beginning of my shift, I'm in the office when I get a call to the front. A homeless woman with messy gray hair and a very wrinkled face, looking possibly 70 or 80, is yelling at the cashier. Her description is important for later. She doesn't have enough money for cigarettes, so the cashier won't sell them to her, and she's screaming. I tell her to leave. I see her outside demanding other customers give her money. She was only about 5 foot tall, less than 100 pounds, so most customers ignore her. I tell her to leave or I'm calling the cops. She starts screaming and ready to pick a fight with me, so I get my phone out and call the police. About 15 minutes later, a police officer comes in telling me that he saw the woman matching the description I gave causing a ruckus at the gas station across the street. He's arrested her, so we shouldn't have any problems with her tonight. I go about my shift. Until about an hour later. A brown-haired woman looking about 50 or 60, wearing her pajamas and a windbreaker, comes in frantically looking for her daughter. She said her daughter called about an hour ago and gave the address where she was and to please come get her. It took me a minute to put two and two together. I asked the woman if her daughter was homeless, then I gave the description of the homeless woman. She said yes, that's her daughter. I told her what had happened and that the police have her. The woman breathed a sigh of relief, saying that at least she's safe for the night, and the police will probably enter her into some mental health and drug program for the next 30 days. That her daughter has a history of drug and mental health problems. She says she'll call the police in the morning and leaves. After the woman leaves, I ask my cashier if I heard correctly that the old woman was this woman's daughter. The cashier confirmed that if I saw correctly, the mom looked 30 years younger than the daughter. Cashier and I both gave each other a stare and concluded. Just say no to drugs. They age you. Had a woman come through my line buying alcohol one time. We are supposed to card if you look under 40 years old, so I didn't ask for her ID. Oh boy, she lost it. Started screaming about how she was in her early 30s, and I need to ask for her ID. She looked about 60 to 65. I carded everyone because I just can't tell what someone's age is. Ever. You may look 60, but I know you're like 20 with some habit I don't want to know about. All my coworkers who smoke look 10 plus years older than they are. It really does a number on your skin and face. Cigarettes? Or do you have coworkers that do hard drugs? All of my friends that vape have cheeks that look 20 plus years older than they are. It's wild. My niece had a friend the same age. By 21, the friend had had 5 kids. The friend looked worn out, like she'd been a ring bearer for slightly too long, and was beginning to fade. By 21, the friend had had 5 kids. Please tell me that there was at least one multiple birth in that tally. Had a friend like that once. They were all diaper trained. She finally looked like she slept and was a normal age. Faces of meth. For real, this stuff ruins your life. You can recover a lot once you get off. There are also pre/post rehab pics that show that transformation. Especially sores. I don't want to give the wrong impression though. As you can also see from linked pics, deep wrinkles aren't completely going away, and younger and shorter addiction is better. Decades of heavy use aren't going to recover as well. Faces of Addiction is really effective though, because young people can be more motivated by vanity than death or other consequences in some cases. Once, a very polite man who looked 100 years old asked me outside a drugstore for $2.24. Not sure why I did it, but I offered him $5. He said no, that he only needed $2.24 and he had all the rest. So I gave him $3. He came back out with my change and a can of Lysol spray. We talked while he took out a can opener, pried a hole in the Lysol, let the pressure out, took out a straw and started sipping the spray out of the can. He told me it was his drug of choice, that he used to be an accountant, and that he was 40 years old. Thing Lysol had aged him an extra 60 years. What flavor? I like how the moral of the story isn't that drugs turn you into a lunatic and ruin your life to the point where your mother is actively relieved when you get arrested because being in jail is an improvement, but that drugs make you look old. There can be two lessons in one story, like in this one. Right. But people will pick up on different things. Maybe I really dislike my family, I don't really, so I wouldn't put a lot of stock in what my mom thinks. But I know I don't want to look like Keith Richards at 38 unless I'm assured of having that sweet, sweet Keith Richards money. My 84-year-old grandmother looks better and younger than my mother. Mother is an alcoholic, chain smoker, drug addict, and I haven't seen her in 20 years. I was scrolling on FB, and a cousin mentioned my mother's name. I scrolled back up to the pic, and I did not recognize my own mother. She's about 60 years old. A lot of drugs are dehydrating agents. It causes your skin cells to shrivel, they can't regenerate because of the poisons, and then the addicts are too busy or poor getting their next fix to eat properly. What's even more interesting is seeing what this does to their bodies once they die. Well, don't leave us hanging, what does it do to people's bodies? As a cashier, seeing this every day is about to make my heart sad every day. Say no to working. It ages you. A tale about a customer getting angry about finding what they wanted. So I am new in my job and work in a well-known crafting store. So of course I don't know where every single item in the store is. Anyways, a customer came in and was looking for a specific kind of plastic bag that zips up. Not knowing where it is, I asked my manager through these headsets we were at work to communicate with each other. They tell me that we don't sell it, and they go looking around for it and somehow found what they were looking for. Then they came to me and raised their voice saying, "Are you the person who I spoke to? Whoever told you that you don't sell these is stupid, just so you know you guys do sell these," and stormed away. Then they passive-aggressively paid at the checkouts and treated whoever was working at the checkouts like crap, walked out of the store, pissed about these bags. What a day. There's a store across the street from my house. A couple of years ago, I used to buy this really tasty X-brand T-Wurst. I bought it every second, third day for months. One thing to note is that this is a very small market with one cashier and one employee at the deli, and the selection was very small, think 4 to 5 types of T-Wurst. One day, I came to the store and asked for my favorite T-Wurst, only to be told, by the same employee who cut it for me almost daily for the past few months, that they don't have it. I asked, "Oh, so you're out? Do you happen to know when you'll get a new batch?" To which she replied, "No, we aren't going to get it. We don't carry that brand here." I was obviously confused and asked her what she meant, as I've been buying it from her for the past few months. "We've never carried that brand here," she replied to my utter shock. I went back home empty-handed just to find literally dozens of receipts from that store with the X-brand T-Wurst. Yeah, that's on the manager there. The not knowing stock is on the manager. The getting pissed about plastic bags and being an overall cockwobble is on the customer. I've had customers ask for something that I'd never heard of before, then be baffled by their description of the item when they come back to tell me how stupid I am. I'm sorry, sir or madam, I never thought to equate covered meat stick with hot dog, not an actual example. How stupid of me to not recognize what you wanted. One time a customer asked if we carry a certain brand of paint, and I replied that I wasn't sure, as I'd never heard of that one. She said, "You work at an art store, and you've never heard of this brand." Turns out she was just completely butchering the pronunciation/name, and we did in fact carry that brand. Face with rolling eyes. OMG, years ago I was doing returns before Christmas Eve closing. Customer was talking to another customer. They're like these cheesy things with cheese in them. I'd be annoyed too if I asked a store employee to be told they don't stock an item, and then I found it on the shelves. I would probably avoid all the passive aggressiveness and not so passive aggressiveness. But I get their frustration. I've always been kinda glad in these situations and happy to tell the workers that I found the thing and where. That's the usual reaction of customers that shop in my store too. If the employee just made up the answer that they don't carry it to get rid of me, I'd be upset. But if they genuinely tried to find out, for example by walkie-talkie to a manger, then I'd happily share what I learned after finding the thing. I worked at a grocery store about a decade ago. At the time, there was a huge recall on some kind of dog food. I can't remember why. I think there was glass or lead or something in the food. We had carried that brand for a long time. After we pulled the contaminated recalled dog food off the shelf, corporate sent an email telling us to tell any customer asking about it that we had never carried that brand. It was ridiculous. I let the customers know that the dog food they regularly bought there was something we had never carried. I started giving out the direct line to the VP. He was pissed. I lolled. We had to do similar at the convenience store I worked at when the government did a mass recall on caffeinated/energy alcoholic drinks. For Loco, J00SE, Sparks. Had to tell dozens of customers we never carried it when we had 80+ cases sitting in the back room waiting for pickup. I had a similar issue at the Bullseye store as a customer. I also worked there many moons ago. I placed an order online to pick up in store. One of my items was a pair of slippers. I got a notification that my order was ready, but they were out of the slippers. Which I thought was odd, as their online ordering system said they had several pairs in stock. I went to the store to pick up my order, and decided to check out the footwear section for my slippers. Lo and behold, there they were. Not on the wall where they were listed in the app, but on a display a few feet away. I grabbed them, purchased them, then went to the guest services counter to let them know their order picker was basically lazy. I didn't say that, but I relayed my story. I got a shrug and a very weak sorry. It wasn't as if they were in a different part of the store. The associate literally just had to turn around, and they would have seen the slippers I paid for. I'd be annoyed too, but I've never been any place where nobody ever makes a mistake. There's no need for the name calling. Sounds like a miscommunication to me. Customers like these are miserable and aren't truly happy unless they're spreading the misery around. Some folk are never happier than when they've missed their bus. It is kind of on the manager to check, but even then, you can't expect staff, even managers, to know each and every item the store carries. Especially when you're looking for what basically sounds like Ziploc bags, something you can get in pretty much any grocery store, corner store or bargain store, and for some reason you have decided to look for them in a craft store. Hell, sometimes places get new items in their shipments, and they don't bother to tell the employees. For example, I work at a gas station. Our shipments come every Monday, and since I only work weekends, if new product comes in I won't even know until I actually see it on the shelf when I come in. My God, he actually found what he was looking for in his own? Poor guy was just mad because he actually had to expend a little energy. Life is so tough sometimes. I mean, drive to a store, look around and find the item you want? That's just, wow. What a day. I can't even begin to imagine. I'm sure he'll be yelling his grandkids about the day he actually had to find something on his own without the help of any employees. The lady who didn't know how her new car worked. So a few years ago I was working at a gas station. This gas station happened to be maybe 2,000 feet from a Ford dealership. So one day, this elderly lady, bare minimum 70 years old, comes and gets gas. Shiny brand new Ford Focus, probably just traded in her 1994 Buick LeSabre for it. She buys gas. Pumps the gas, but her gas gauge is still showing empty. Remember how I told you she probably traded in her 1994 Buick? As some of you may know, the gas gauge in older cars would show how full they are even when the car isn't running. However, in newer cars, the gas gauge only works when the vehicle is running. So she finishes pumping her gas, but the gas gauge is still reading as empty. Confused as to what's wrong, she comes in and asks us if the gas pump is broken. I come out to help her, and she points out her empty gas gauge. I ask her to start her car. She starts it, and the gas gauge instantly flies up to the F mark. Instantly, her face is flooded with horror and embarrassment, and she starts apologizing profusely. I tried telling her that it's okay, no big deal, but it didn't calm her enough, and she looked like she was about to cry. She left and never came back again. My mechanic I used to go to worked for a Dodge dealer, and this little old lady bought the first new car she bought in decades. She traded in really old Dodge Dart. One day after that, she came in screaming at the service manager, and even threw her keys at him, and was telling him that they can have their car back. When they finally got her all calmed down and asked her what was wrong, she said, "I washed that car twice, and even spent money getting it detailed, and I still can't get that light that says wash to turn off. You know, the indicator light when your windshield washer fluid is low." Along those same lines, my mom, who is elderly, was in a fender bender, and while her car was in the shop they gave her a rental car. The rental had a push-button start which confused her. I think her husband started it for her, but after running her errands her husband wasn't home, and she couldn't figure out how to turn the car off. She eventually started honking her horn until the neighbor came over to investigate and turned it off for her. When I test drove my current car earlier this year, I wasn't told how to start it. Took a few minutes to figure out. Turns out foot on brake, long press the start button. Not entirely obvious. Previous car was key start with no pedal involvement, one before was push button but needed the clutch pressing. I had a rental once that was one of the early gas/electric hybrids. Car was running when I got it, so went from the airport to my meeting. Came out, get in and put the not key in the receiver. Gauges come on, no sound at all, I can't figure out why it isn't running. Turn it off and on 4 or 5 times. I finally, for no apparent reason, shift into drive, and it moves forward. S**Cur was electric only up to about 15 miles per hour and totally silent. Had no idea. LOL, that's great. I rented a car once which I could not figure out how to open the gas door. I walked into the gas station and asked the clerk if they knew how to open the gas cap on a Ford Model X. One of the person in the store told me to try pushing the gas cap. Was never more grateful to that person since I was really low on gas too. When you are not used to certain cars and certain manufacturers change up stuff to save on costs or other reasons, it can get very annoying the first time. I totally feel for that lady, age been irrelevant. Same with me, I finally gave up and figured I'd check to owner's manual to see if it could help. Opened the glove compartment and voila, there's the gas cap release. Inside the glove compartment. Couldn't even reach the release from the driver's seat without removing my seatbelt. I hate driving a loner, everything is in the wrong place. There is a suggestion that I have been meaning to make to rental agencies. For each car, make/model, include an information sheet listing things that might be different from the renter's own car, opening the gas cap, strange locations for headlight high beam and other controls, etc. I've got a loaner right now due to getting hit last week. It's very uncomfortable. For one thing, they only had SUVs, and I really don't like driving bigger vehicles. Then, I went to get gas for the first time, and there's no switch to open the tank door. I ended up Googling it. Turns out it's a pressure switch, never would have guessed. Brit here, that fact is important. Took my car in for service earlier this year, and had a courtesy car in its place for the day. Same make as mine, just the next model down in the range. Got in the car, found the button to start, went to put my foot on the clutch to start it, no clutch. Looked at the gear lever, that doesn't look right. They've given me an automatic. I have never driven an automatic in my life, they're just not as common here. Had to go and find one of the staff and get them to show me how to start it, and make it go, as I hadn't got the foggiest. I worked not too far from NJ where, IDK, if this is still true, you cannot legally pump your gas. Generally the best customers I had were them asking for help. Always tried to help them my best too. Still true. Same thing in Oregon. Ha! You can't pump your own gas? A few years ago, I was traveling cross-country, and had stopped at this little deli. While I was sitting there enjoying my yummy corned beef sandwich, this older, 70s, lady comes in, looking frantic. She looks around and spots me, somehow deciding that I must be her savior. She comes over to me and asks, "Do you know anything about cars?" Without waiting for me to answer, she starts word vomiting at me. "I just bought this car today, and they gave me a code to unlock the door, but the code doesn't work, and there's no keyhole to unlock it with the key, and I called the dealership and they're closed, and I can't get in the car, and I don't have anyone to call, and I don't know what to do." The whole time she is saying this, she is waving her key fob around. I asked her, "What happens when you click the unlock button on your key fob? Do the lights flash or does it beep or anything? Maybe the battery in the remote is dead." She looks at the key fob like she's never seen it before. Points it towards the door, and I see the headlights on a car just outside the door flash twice. The old lady's face turned bright red, and she just turned and rushed out the door without saying a word to me. My 2011 Buick Regal, it's a 4-sill, but has a turbo, so not a grandpa car even though I am a grandpa, tops out at 155 miles per hour. Gas gauge is on E when off. When you start it, gauge goes to F, back down to E and back up to actual amount of gas left. I've heard of gas gauges that will go to E when you shut off the engine. Old style sending unit is a variable resistor in series with a heater around a bimetallic strip, and those where the needle would stay in the position it was at shut down. New style gauge is a servo motor that only moves when the control module tells it to. Even had a rental where the gauge would go to 1/2 when shut off. Servo motor with an unbalanced weight would drift to weight at lowest point if it didn't get an input. Only place I've seen gauge shows actual level and responds to changes when shut off is on purely mechanical gauges, such as the portable tank for an outboard motor. Never saw a car with this type of gauge. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.